Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking. If you are a fan of my channel, and I certainly hope that you are, you probably know that the Cthulhu mythos is something I hold near and dear to my heart because the game Arkham Horror was the game that got me into this designer board game hobby that I got into, well over a decade ago now. Man, that is a long time ago. But regardless, so when I was approached by the fine people at Purple Meeple Games to take a look at their new foray into the co-op Cthulhu mythos world with this game Cultistorm, I was like, yes, give it here, I want to play it. And man, oh man, if I've been having fun with this one. It is a difficult, tough, grab you by the throat, immersion-filled co-op experience that I yearn for. I want games that totally kick my butt. I want games to give me tough decisions, and this one did not disappoint. So let me show you how the game is played, and then we'll come back here and I'll kind of expand upon some of the parts, the immersion parts of the game a little bit, and then I'll also tell you a little bit more why I enjoy it. Alright, sweet, let's do this. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to dive in and show you how Cultistorm works, but before I do that, just a couple of quick things. This is a game that has a lot going on, and so what I'm going to be doing is I'm not going to be showing like a complete game or anything like that. I'm going to be showing you how the mechanisms of the game work, and so you can kind of get a feel for how you're going to play the game when you have it yourself. Secondly, there's a lot of stuff here that I'm going to touch on in my final thoughts. The expansion material that's being provided by the publisher, as well as the narrative elements, which I think really ups the game as far as this goes, as far as Cthulhu-themed games go, as far as the immersion factor of the game, something that I really enjoyed a great deal. But that being said, let's just kind of go over what you're looking at here, and so you can kind of tell what's going on. Alright, so this is the main game board, obviously, and then each player is going to have a player board like this, and I'll talk more about this stuff, those two separate things here in just a little bit. But when you do set up the game, you will set up a random location in those 5 spots. You can kind of see them. And then there's also these spots, which are considered to be like the terror circle, as it's called. You get lots of these location cards, so it will be a different game each time you play. Each location card will, if you know your Lovecraftian Cthulhu mythos, you're going to have like the old graveyard Boston, and then it's going to have an ability. Each one of these places is going to have an ability that when you activate it, you're going to be able to use it to help you with your quest. And your quest is to seal each of these 5 seals that are on the board. Now, just one of the things I should mention right off the bat is that these seals are tied into the locations, and if you're ever wondering, just think clockwise. So like this seal is tied in with this location, this seal is tied in with this location, and so on and so forth. Just keep that in mind when I'm referencing when like an investigator is at this location and wants to close a seal, or like seal a gate over here. That's the one that they'll be working on. There are in these locations cultists will appear, and these cultist cards, and that's obvious. The cultists will just start showing up in those locations. I should mention as well, this game does take a little bit of space on your board, so just keep in mind this is kind of a small table I have set up just to show you. So normally the player board wouldn't be this close to the board, so to speak. But anyway, I wanted to point out one other thing with these location cards. Like you can see Old Graveyard Boston, and here you see this little book here, and it's a 107. That is the narrative part of the game, and once again I'm going to touch on the narrative parts of the game in my final thoughts, and I'll even read some of that stuff to you. But in this particular situation, we're not going to be using the narrative. I'm just going to be kind of teaching you how the game is played. Alright, so each person is going to pick one of these players. They're going to draw 2 items from the item deck, which is right here. They're going to pick one, and they're going to put the other one underneath at the bottom of the deck. I've gone ahead And like of my two, I got this one, which is the phosphorescent bottle. And you can heal one other investigator wherever they may be. They can discard all their insanity tokens right away, and you can't use it yourself. Once again, you can see there's that little narrative spot right there. Just I won't keep pointing that out, but I just wanted you to see that there's lots of that going on. And well, as I said, final thoughts. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. Since we've mentioned the insanity tokens, I should mention that insanity is your hit points basically in this game. You can have up to 4 on your hero. If you ever get a 5th one, you go insane and like you're incurable. Maybe perhaps you even take your own life. But regardless, the whole point is that if any of the investigators, the heroes trying to stop the great old ones, ever get 5 insanity tokens, they die and the game is over. You immediately lose. Now there's other ways you can lose too, like if a great old one actually breaks through the gates and is able and comes through and like consumes the earth. Obviously that's a losing situation. If too many cultists end up on the board, things like that just can cause you to lose as well. As with a lot of these Cthulhu-themed games, there's lots of ways to lose, but only really one way to win. And the only way you can win is by sealing all of these gates that are currently under siege by the evilness in the chaos and the insanity that is the great old ones. All right, so the way the game works is you're going to see that there are these terror cards in these in all these gate locations, and there is a tarot pawn, not a tarot pawn, a fear, like these fear cards, whatever, will have certain effects if certain number of fear tokens can hit there, or terror tokens can happen, and this will proceed around the board. It's always going to go 1 per turn, but there are other actions that you can do that are going to force that terror token, or there'll be events that'll force that terror token to move around as well. Whenever it moves to another space, you move it to a space and you take one of these terror tokens and you put it in that spot. Each one of these terror cards has a certain number of these symbols on there, and you can see that there are 3. If that had 3 of those purple terror tokens on there, you would then flip this card over when you have a terror situation, and you can see horror advance the terror marker 3 times. And notice you would it compounds that problem and you'd add even more. Now, that doesn't happen until I kind of jumped around there just a little bit, and I do apologize for that, but I wanted to show you how that terror tract worked, and that's going to be part of the turn, which I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. You're also going to have this pawn here represents the cultists, and one of the first things you do on every turn is that depending upon the number of players you have, in this case we're playing a 5-player game, you're going to move this cultist 5 spaces along the board. And I just knocked over this character here, and you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's actually going to make a full circle. And what happens then is that you draw one of these cultist cards, and you place a new cultist card in each one of these locations that it lands on. I'm not going to go through that whole process and just put out the cards, but what it does, obviously, and let me just move these little insanity tokens out of the way, when you place more and more on the board, you're going to deal with more and more cultists. If you ever have 4 cultists in a location, and you're instructed to put another one down, you don't add another one, and you're actually going to add a great old one to the board, and that is never going to be a good thing. Great old ones come in 2 varieties, really bad and really, really bad. This is just a really bad great old one, and this is a really, really bad great old one. You'll notice that there are these symbols that are on the side of the cards, and the cultists have them as well. Might as well just pick up a cultist and show that to you. You can see there's those symbols. If you're going to defeat these in combat, cultists or great old ones, you're going to have to match those symbols in some way, shape, or form in order to make that happen. And so the thing is, Also, once a Great Old One shows up, you no longer can seal the gate normally. And I'll talk about sealing gates here in just a little bit. But you can't seal the gate normally. The only way you're going to be able to seal the gate that is that corresponds with the location in question is if you actually destroy the Great Old One, which is going to be really, really tough. One of the interesting things is, like over here, if like the Great Old One did show up in this spot, every single time you normally would add a cultist to that, instead what happens is the Great Old One actually consumes and devours the cultist that's below it. And I should mention that I didn't actually grab the one. See here, it's like followers of Dagon. I actually got lucky, and here's Dagon. So the cultist that is on the top, when you summon the Great Old One, is going to match up. So he summons Dagon, and then if you get back to him, he gets to devour that guy. And then if you went to the next one, he would devour that one. Now, what I'm doing here is, since you put it like this, you can see I'm adding these symbols onto there, making that Great Old One all that more difficult to destroy. If by the players. Now, the players can help themselves out by maybe going to that spot and killing that cultist, basically not giving him extra power. But if they aren't able to do that, and here, let me actually set up the card so it looks right. You're going to see, you're going to have all those symbols that you're going to have to destroy in order to defeat him. And another way that you can lose is if you have a Great Old One at a spot and he isn't destroyed, because basically he gets to that spot, or she, I suppose, or it, I guess would be a better way to describe it. If you don't destroy them, the turn that they get to the precipice of that gate, they do come into our world and destroy everything and consume all that is good and wholesome, and we are devoured by whatever Great Old, in this case, Dagon. Alright, so that's kind of what you're seeing in front of you. There are some dice. Whenever you're gonna, during the cultist phase, you'll roll these dice, and they will have one of the many symbols that's on there. Plus, they will have, there's also blanks. That just adds to the difficulty of that situation. I should also mention that if your cultist, the symbol that's right there, if it matches the corresponding gate that it corresponds to them, they get to add that to their power. So in this case, because remember you're going clockwise, that doesn't match up. That's like an elder sign kind of starfish type of thing, and that would be a globe. So he wouldn't get to add this particular symbol of power. He would just have these three. But if he was over here, because those two match up, he would be able to add that symbol of power to his retinue, making him that much more difficult to destroy. Alright, I understand it's a lot to consume here, but hopefully that gives you kind of a decent little overview before I actually talk about how a turn works. Now, there is no set turn limit to this game. You're just going to keep playing until either you win or the world is destroyed in some way, in some fashion. I've already explained the first part of the turn. You are going to move the cultist pawn around the board, and you are going to then add a cultist each spot that they stop at. Remember, that is the number of spaces equal to the number of players. Now, if you have sealed a spot, sealed a location, you will still, there are situations where, you're still going to move around, but, also, there's situations where you're not going to be able to put a cultist down just because the rules will forbid it. And then, in those situations, you still move it to that spot, but you just don't put a cultist down. Just keep that in mind. Alright, so after you've moved the cultist pawn around the board to where it needs to be, and you've placed a cultist in each spot that it's stopped at where it is legal to place a cultist, you will move on to the next phase. Oh, I forgot, I should mention that there is a cultist limit depending upon the number of players. If you're playing with 2, the cultist limit is 10, and then 3 with 11, 4 with 12, and 5 is 13. If there's ever more cultists than that limit, you automatically lose the game as well. Yet another way that you can lose the game. Alright, so then after you All right, done with that. What you'll do is each player will draw cards from their personal deck up to 4 cards. Now they had they could keep cards from the round before. If it's first round of the game, you'll just draw 4 cards. You're gonna put these cards into your hand, and trust me, you will be going through your deck quite quickly and quite efficiently because you're going to be using your cards for a lot of different things. Each person has a deck of cards, and a lot of the cards are going to be exactly the same. However, certain cards, if they have a symbol, like if they have this elder sign symbol on them, like so, that means that they are specific to that particular character. And so each of these cards basically they have 2 functions. Either they function as the symbol that that person is holding in that picture, like so, or you can use them for the action that they are located. Now, some of these will have these different symbols on them. Like this is a like a research function. People can use those if they want to on their turn. They can discard cards with a research token on there that allows them to draw more items from the deck. You're allowed to have up to 2 items up there. There are bad things in there, and also you don't normally get to just like, because the deck has you'll go through it a lot because you only get to pick one of, like, so let's say you have 3 cards that have that symbol on them, and you discard those 3 to use them for that ability. You get to draw 3, but you only get to keep 1, and normally you can't just reshuffle up the discard pile from those. So and there's also some bad events and things in there as well that you might want to avoid. So you can't, well, going through and searching for those things is actually, it can be a good idea. Sometimes you may want to just, take your time and use the items that you have. But each investigator can have up to 2 items on them at any time. So I just wanted to show you, so like here, it's like, so when you do a support action, when you guys, the investigator you support can remove a terror crystal from any terror card in exchange for 1 insanity. The action can only be carried out once. And these will just kind of tell you exactly what you should do, and it's pretty straightforward. Here's like a support. This little fist means it's for combat. You can support the combat of another investigator with one of the following symbols, and those are the 2. An investigator supported can use both symbols in one of their combats, advance the terror marker once if they do so. Now, the big thing with doing a support action is that whenever you do a support, you have to take an insanity when you do a support. The only thing against that is that if you're using one of your special cards, one that has the symbol on there, you don't take an insanity for using one of your special cards. The big thing about this is that you don't follow a real big turn structure. As soon as this happens, the players will draw their cards, they can share the information, they can talk about what they're going to do, what they're going to focus on, what they're going to do, what each person thinks that they can do. Perhaps they're going to move to another spot and attack, but you each get to basically use up and take your actions as much as you want. The big thing is that each person has a maximum of 10 of these cards that you get to go through, because normally, unless and I'm looking to see if there's one with a symbol on it, there's some cards that don't allow you to draw another card to use it. But normally, once you use a card, you're able to draw another card. So you're able to go through your deck pretty easily, and use up more and more. Remember, there is a limit of 10. After everybody draws up to 4 cards in their hand, each person will roll an investigator die, and they'll put it in the middle of the board. I've already just rolled those and put those out there. These dice will have different symbols on them, and players are able to take those dice, and use them on their turn, and then claim them when they're actually going to take their actions. Now we'll follow the terror phase. When the terror phase happens, I always said that you move the terror token 1, and you add a terror token to that location. When the terror gets all the way back to the shield icon here after it's dropped 1 on each of these spaces. At that point, the players get to pick one of these 5 locations to activate, and then place this token on there. When they place a token on there, you activate that spot, and now players can use that spot for its power and its ability. Like the Arkham Asylum, when you activate it, you have to move the terror marker some more, but players who are on that spot are able to remove insanity tokens by using the action. They can go there to, tell their psychiatrist their troubles and remove some of the insanity that they have. You get to do that until there's no more location cards to activate, and so after it's gone around the board like 5 times, which I'll be honest with you, if you're going around 5 times, you're probably I'll say this: you're not necessarily going to be in trouble, but theoretically, you're probably in trouble if the terror marker's moving around that quickly. This game is very, very difficult, and but anyway, I'll talk about that later, obviously. But all right, after you're done with the terror phase, you're going to do the preparation of the investigators phase. So you're going to get ready, and this is where everybody talks and decides what they're going to do. And there's tons of things that people can do. They can choose an investigator die, and mind you, remember, you're not doing this in any specific order. Players will talk and say, hey, I'm going to take this shield die, this with the shield face on it, because that is going to be useful for fighting this follower of Dagon, which I happen to be on, because that matches up with that particular spot. Things like that, where you're going to be talking and discussing things. You're allowed to move from your spot to any of the other spots that you wish to. You can move once, so you can move from here to here, and that'll do move. Anytime you move again after your first move, you have to take an insanity. The idea is that these places are so crazy that you can't really steel yourself doing it. Handling that spot. You can take the action of the spots you're in. You can discard those cards, as I said, for research. If you have a weapon or an object or something that you want to give to somebody, you're in the same spot as them, you can hand those over to them. You can play your cards as support cards to help out the other players. And you can go through character development, which is something that's pretty important. You also are able to choose targets. So you will be able to say, when combat phase comes, and if I was the blue player and I happen to be here, I'm going to be attacking that follower of Dagon. And you have to declare a target, and you can only declare targets that are on your spot. You can't declare a target that's over there. And if there's more than one that you can attack, you can actually declare multiple targets. But mind you, you have to declare that target on your turn to be able to do that. All right, so I mentioned character development. So this is a little out of place because I haven't talked about, but what happens when you defeat a cultist. But when you defeat a cultist, you're going to get a reward, and these rewards come in the shape of these symbols that are over here in these tokens. And each cultist will give a different, depending upon what each cultist has on their card. The big thing with the rewards are, you're going to use them for sealing gates, which is really, really important, obviously. But also, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using it to unlock abilities. So you can see here, there's an ability here. That's ability 1. This is ability 2. This is ability 3. So, the first one, you can just use any one trophy to be able to activate that. And then for number 2 and number 3, you can, when you do those, you will, they have to be the exact same trophy to activate them. And so here we have the symbol on one of your investigator dice counts twice if you activate that ability. But notice it comes at a price. So this one advanced the terror marker once when you activate that. Here's a cultist appears immediately at your location if you do that one. So there are prices that you have to pay if that happens. So but it is imperative that you do improve your investigator, because you need to do it to be able to win. Now you might be saying, why do you need to do it to win? Because not only do you unlock a power, but you also get to claim one of these gate seal cards when you do so. Each of these gate seal cards has a one of the 5 symbols on each of those gates that correspond. So this one would be for that one way up on top that has the shield symbol up on top. You need these to be able to seal gates. You can't do so otherwise. Well, you can if you defeat the old one in the spot. It automatically seals the spot. But to seal the gate without having to battle an old one to do so, you need these cards to be able to do so. So it's kind of you might not want to improve your character. You might not want to spend your trophies in doing so, because the trophies that come with the game, these are finite. I mean, as people spend them, they do go back. But in certain situations, like when you use them to seal gates or when you use them to unlock the powers, they are used up. So you have you have a finite number of those trophies. But regardless, you have to do it to get those gate seals if you're going to have a chance at winning. Alright, so after everybody's gotten done with all their preparation and decided what they're going to do, now you're going to go ahead and go into combat. And combat's actually pretty simple. There will be situations where you'll be possibly re-rolling a cultist die or re-rolling your investigator die, which you take. But for the most part, what you're doing, whether it is a cultist or whether it is a great old one, what you're trying to do is you're trying to match up the symbols that are part of what you're trying to kill. So in this case, you're going to have you're going to need to match up this die, and you're going to have to match up those three because of the fact that the die wasn't a blank in this spot. And remember, I told you like this didn't match up with this symbol, so we don't have to deal with that particular. So if this was a blank, I would just need 3 shield symbols, and we could do that because other players maybe put their support cards in front of mine and said, okay, look, I'm going to hand you this card that has this symbol on it, so you're going to be able to use it. If I have cards in my hand that have that symbol, I don't know if I drew one like so, but all I need is 3 of those, and then I would be able to destroy this cultist and kill him off, and so he wouldn't be threatening that location anymore. I should mention that because you're going to get more than one cultist and it stacks up, some characters are going to have this little gun symbol on their board. If they have the gun symbol, that means that it is a ranged combat and they're able to fight beyond, they can fight the second or third or fourth cultist have the location. Characters that have that little the melee symbol or the brass knuckles, they can only fight the closest one that's close to them. When you defeat a cultist, you just simply take the cultist card off the board and put that in the discard pile, and then obviously take back your target token for doing so. And it is quite possible for more than one player to attack the same target as well. You're going to be doing that a lot against great old ones. If you defeat a great old one on that spot, you have to defeat all the cultists. You can't skip ahead even if you have ranged things. You have to defeat the cultists beforehand. But if you defeat the great old one, as I said, you automatically seal the spot. So if we defeated a great old one here, you would look for the seal for that symbol here, and I will find it, and you just place it over that spot to show that you've sealed that gate and you're 1/5 of the way towards winning. To seal a gate without defeating your great old one, it is relatively simple. However, you need the corresponding card, as I said. You have to have that to do so. And then you need just 5 trophies that you'll give up. And, well, I should say 1 trophy per player that's playing. So in this case, since we have 5 players, you're going to have to give up 5 trophies. And they have to come from that player's reserve when they do that particular action. They can't have somebody that isn't at that spot saying, "Oh, I'll give you these trophies." No, you actually have to have everybody at that particular location, contributing those to do so. And as long as you have this card that corresponds with that, you will then place that trophy down there and you will seal that. If you can seal all 5, whether it is through defeating the great old one or by using going through the sealing of the gates, then you will win the game. I should mention, I know I mentioned this before, but just to reiterate, when you use 5 trophies, you place the 5 trophies on that spot and you can't get those back. So just keep that in mind that since that is a finite resource, you are spending that magical energy to make sure. And if you ever kill a cultist that would normally give you a reward, that there are none available in the reserve, you just don't get a reward in that situation. There you go. Cultistorm has a lot going on as far as the way you lose. It has a lot going on as far as the planning going. But as far as the base mechanisms of the game, it does follow a very tried and true step-by-step process. Something that after you get through the first turn or two of playing the game, it will become second nature. And and also it is extremely challenging, as I alluded to. This is a game that totally kicked my group's butts repeatedly. narratively, I had to kind of like dumb the game down a little bit to get my first win and just play a 2-player game by myself, and just so I wouldn't have arguments over what was the most important, and I was finally able to pull off a win. But regardless, as far as a cooperative game, it passed that test for me. It was very, very brutal, very, very difficult, and I had a lot of fun. But there is so much more to this game. I mentioned the narrative elements and the immersion and the thematic part of the game, and I'm going to talk about that as well in my final thoughts. But let's do that right now. Alright, so there you go. Cultistorm. Yeah, I got it right there. Cultistorm! Alright, so before I talk about the stuff that I really, really like about the game, I want to... Well, first of all, if you've watched my channel, you know that I have my strict regimen. There's some things that have to happen with my board game co-op experiences that I look for. And one is the game has to beat me the first time I play it. And there was no doubt this game destroyed us the first time we played it. Two, I need to lose a lot at the game. I want the wins of co-ops to feel like I earned it. If I feel like, oh, I played it once, I lost, I know how to beat it now, and I do it, that isn't earning it. It took us... I think, like I said, I had to play it solo by myself to get a win, playing a 2-player game, and that was like my 5th time of playing. So I really liked that. I liked the fact that it just was not like taking it easy on me, and I think more co-op games need to be like that. And also, it has to, and I realize this is just, it can be a group thing. It isn't necessarily the game itself, but I mean, it can't lend itself to the one-person ruler epidemic, where one person's just telling everybody else what to do, and then you kind of just move forward. And we can have debates as to whether or not that's just, if that could be any cooperative game, but I firmly believe there are certain cooperative games that just lend themselves towards enabling somebody in that general role, if you will. But anyway, so this game, totally not. Everybody feels like they all have something equal to give. They all have something equal to add, and they're all important to the victory, or if their absence is important to the possible loss. So it feels like that. Anyway, so it passes all those things. So it passes that muster. Now, was it fun? Yes, it was super fun. It was just games like this survive or fall on their tension level, and it's one of those things where it's like you are constantly weighing what's the most important thing for us to take care of right now? Do we need to go and kill those cultists? And there's enough randomness as far as can we survive whatever that terror card is that's going to be revealed next turn? Will we give up, moving the terror token 3 spots to enact this power on this spot on the board that will allow us to do certain actions that weren't available to us? Is it worth it right now? Certain things like that, and you can just have compounded problems upon compounded problems that I think you don't expect, but then you have to roll with the punches and find a solution to them as well. And I think that's when it's when a cooperative game pushes you to the edge of the cliff, but you somehow find the rock or the grassy scrub to hold on and drag yourself back in and then claim the victory. And we did that finally as a group of 4. That you're like, oh yes, we won. And then Cultistorm does that. Now, regardless to any of that, however, 2 things. One, they've added so much expansion stuff to this game as far as specific cultists and specific mini little expansions as far as certain types of cultists and certain great old ones that kind of go hand in hand together to kind of create a storyline, if you will. There is a mode that is going to allow one person to take on the role of some sort of god of the world, being H.P. Lovecraft. So instead of being a co-op game, now it's a one against many. So they're trying to stop them. So it kind of gives the AI of the game a person, a push, if you will. So things like that, which I'm really excited for. I think that's really cool, and I like it when they do that. Now, the other big thing is the narrative of the game. So this is not. So first of all, there's like actual like written novelization that the creators of the game have gone through, and it is very, very, very well written. And this is just like a short story called "A Window," it's a window into infinity, and it's just well written. And this was given, and this is something where they say, take a moment to read this. Take a moment to just kind of allow yourself to be immersed into the world or whatever, and that's something they're just adding to the game so that you can be there. But this is the thing that I like, and this is just a real small sample, and this is like the Cultistorm script book. And I mentioned that some of those cards are going to have that little number on them or whatever, and so if you get those and you're playing narrative play, it isn't just going to be stories, they're actually going to have game effects that are going to happen. So like, here we go. Like here's this, and this would be number 116, and I'm not gonna read the whole thing, and these things aren't like, oh, it's like 2 sentences. No, I mean these are like multiple paragraph stories that they get. But I mean, but it adds to the story. So here we go. This is fight the cultist. If you defeat them, read the story. If you don't defeat them, continue the game without reading the story. So here we go. The medallions in my hands paralyzed the man for a moment. Then he started turning around as if he was dizzy. He was muttering confused words that gave me enough time to shoot him twice. He collapsed before me without a sound. I crouched beside the dead cultist and searched his pockets methodically. After some fumbling, I found a yellowed envelope with a bunch of photographs in it. I leafed through the photographs that all showed groups of 4 to 6 men and women standing around various terrible altars, performing some horrid ritual as if in a trance. I didn't recognize anyone in the pictures until I got to the last one. I didn't want to believe my eyes, and even today I'm still unable to believe what I saw in the photograph. 5 men, all of them wearing trench coats, stood in a circle in the same dazed and trance-like posture like those in the other pictures, around an indescribably horrible altar with the mutilated carcass of some kind of animal. I had never seen a creature of such horrendous deformity, but this wasn't just the most blood-curdling feature of the photograph. The 5 men performing the ritual, the 5 men whose face radiated infinite, morbid satisfaction and joy, were us. I saw myself in the middle of the picture, and around me my colleagues with whom we waged our desperate war against the hauntingly real visions of madness. Each investigator receives an insanity token. Alright, so that is the stuff that makes games like this epic. And the fact that like each of those cards is going to have their own little stories, and the fact that they've gone to all that trouble to do so. They've actually even composed music to be played in the background while you play the game. It's just, these games, Cthulhu games, tell a story anyway, but when like you add to it with something like that in the background, I just can't begin to just tell you how like sublime the experience is at the table when you get to actually bust that stuff out and actually read what you have going on and just add so much more to it. So there you go. That is Cultistorm. It is amazing. I think everybody that is a fan of co-op games, a fan of Cthulhu type games, I think you're going to want to play this. You're going to want to play it again and again and again. Unravel the mysteries, read the stories, and just have a blast. If you have any questions about the game, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. As always, take some time to be the most awesome version of you that you possibly can be, and just know that, like as I said, the more happiness and love that you give out into the universe, the more happiness and love you will get back. I guarantee you. And even if you don't see it immediately, you're just going to feel better as a person for being that person. Alright, so until next time, this is me, the Untitled Viking, telling you, don't stop being awesome. Alright, bye-bye.